is the perfect set for me to talk about for people who are not there because technology replaces people, right? So when replacement happens, right? Half of them probably are thinking about, will I get an Uber or not? Will I reach on time? Technology solves a lot of problems, but unfortunately or fortunately, we also lack on the idea of meeting people. COVID has set that tone right. Said COVID was lot of a reset time for all of us to go back to family and say, boss, family is also important. Not just the technology, right? I come from the 30 seconds talk on what I usually do. I spend a lot of time understanding and deconstructing games and use that as a part of learning in academia and business. I do a lot of consulting around that as well. So I understand that games, and when I say games, I also talk about a lot of board games, card games, field games, not the contemporary form of games which we often play. And these days I would say that has also been replaced by the TikToks of the world. Not a good idea for innovation, especially when we talk about a lyric panel only. So as we progress, and there's a timer running, I'll try to be, and we'll all try to respect the time there as well. So my first question, which is sort of a opening remark for all of us, is to what extent has India
acceptance, especially over the last few years, has happened, in my view, because of the huge supply chain crisis challenges which we all faced during the pandemic. So if you look at some of the things which have happened during the pandemic, first of all, of course, is a huge volatility in demand, a very fast shifting consumer patterns and preferences, a very big and a sudden push towards e-commerce and direct-to-consumer models, and therefore a completely new way of looking at inventory. You know, the traditional models of inventory management had to be completely relooked. A lot of risk mitigation strategies had to be put in place. The traditional model of how you look at your entire warehousing patterns, etc., had to be relooked. Contactless, you know, everything contactless, from contactless manufacturing to contactless warehousing operations. Therefore, the huge push for robotics and automation within manufacturing processes, and similarly within warehouses. Another area which became very clearly apparent during the pandemic is a huge focus on end-to-end supply chain visibility. Very quickly, organizations realized that unless they invest heavily into building what is now called as digital twins, it will be virtually impossible to manage any kind of crisis in the future. Forget the crisis of the size that we had during the pandemic, but any kind of future crisis will be virtually impossible to manage without investment into digital capabilities of getting end-to-end visibility of your entire supply chain. So these are some of the factors which, in my view, accelerated the appetite of many organizations to accelerate their digital journeys, not just in supply chain, but overall as a business. And I think many of the things that were discussed in the last panel, especially the work that the government is doing, a lot of fantastic work that some 3PL, 4PL players are doing, organizations like Pernod. So I think the situation is right. Cost pressures are never going to go away. And in my view, as the economy grows, as organizations grows, there is very little choice, I would say, left to organizations to become more efficient, to maximize profit, than to invest far more heavily into digital capabilities than they had before.
So thanks for interestingly, this was a conversation over tea with Sahil. We were trying to understand how academia has by and far changed the way they used to deliver things, and largely now it's a new set of culture we are talking about. So Ramkesh, over to you, because the conversation is interesting. Do you see that there's a transition of a cultural shift as well in the digital transformation? Because often when we say transformation in digital spaces, we only talk about, semiconductors and now cloud spaces and things are much more on that. But is there a shift from culture to transformation, or transformation is a new culture now in the organization? Comments on that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think you answered your questions also, but I think the digitalization is killing the culture. For or you can term it the digitalized new culture. It's very challenging in our own home to detach children from the mobile, from the digital worlds. They are so get offended when we ask them, please stop mobile and go out to play and to have some physical activity or say some sports or even talk to with me. Then in one of my last panel, I was listening to my co-panelist. The panelist was saying that nowadays father is required only for plastic card. Otherwise, children don't need father also. This is the level of digitalization. I think this is too heavy and too far across it. But to come on the business preview, of course, the whole ecosystem of the world is changing very fast. India adopted globalization around 20 years back, and since then, the technological or digitalization, or say the same process is being followed with the MNC culture. And we do have almost all MNCs in India, among all 500s who are based on operating in India. Only select few maybe left. But due to global organization, because all MNCs do work in same parameters and same processes, and likely all other companies, whether it is competition or associate partners or whoever, they have to come in same flow of technology also. Plus COVID and before COVID and after COVID, the speed of change has changed a lot. The whatever development of such technology change was happening in 10 years, that is happening in 1 year. One example is say the COVID vaccination. Earlier test trial, they was taking around 10 years. So say one scientist was spending his entire life doing research only on one medicine. Now he has delivered one medicine in 1 year. So is the technology. I am from telecom background. I say the journey from 1G to 2G, 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G. The difference between the path is reducing day by day very fastly. Now ecosystem of the government is also changing. If you see the within COVID period, how fast FASTag has been implemented, and it is without any resistance, without any say dharna, pradarsan, kuch nahi, and government slightly implemented that from this date you have to you have to stick your barcode, you say FASTag on the vehicles, or you have to pay double, just it. And I thought, I observed it's very peacefully and very smoothly it get implemented. So is the digitalization. Today, if you are buying any product, say 2 rupees tomato, every hawker is having digital payment system. So is the in supply chain and business processes. I can give many examples. Everyone knows it is from custom clearance to warehousing, delivery, marketing, sales, promotions, consumption, everywhere digitalization is in part of our life.
I think that's an interesting one. What demonetization could not do to India and in fact to the entire world was what COVID did to us, right? So now we have ATMs and Google Pays and what all UPI channels at every hawker level. I think that's an amazing progress, what I would say. So sometimes if not by regulation, but by no other option, but kind of like we had an option, we had no other option but to be in that zone.
I probably add
yeah, please. Yeah. I was coming to you, Sahil, because we had a conversation around that only. Please go ahead.
No, so I think rightly mentioned to answer the question first, whether it's the culture driving digitization or vice versa. I think today's culture is nothing but agility and the velocity of innovation. We've seen around decades back, it took almost 2 decades for organizations to adopt ERP, right? Then it was a faster time when new solutions came in, computer coming in, and e-commerce, if you see, we wouldn't have even heard the word around, 10, 12 years back, especially in India. And now we are living in an era where brands are defined by supply chain. For example, there would have not been a Blinkit today if people were not even thinking about, can there be a product delivered in 10 minutes? I know a friend of mine, passed out of college, started a brand of designer cakes. Now there's nothing different in that, no? Designer cakes has been there for ages. But the difference was when your wife is angry and you've forgotten to order a cake, he's trying to get the order done within 4 hours. He can deliver a designer cake now. That's the kind of
This is the
difference.
need of that.
It's supply
Because
chain now.
they are getting rich now, I think this solution works.
Correct. So supply chain is now driving brands, and it's not just the new brands that are coming up. Even if you see the traditional brands that have been there, today when there is a new product launch or a new vertical launch, the first thing that even a sales team does is align with the supply chain first. How can we ensure that whatever we are planning to bring to the market, we are the fastest in that. The supply chain is robust enough to meet whatever variability in demand that we are going to see. So I think it's the culture of even the adoption has become faster now. The reason why people are expecting the supply side to be more agile and more faster to innovation is because they can adopt to it quite quickly as well. So that's the key, I think, the culture difference that is brought up.
Absolutely, I think so. We have transformed from a phase of slow and steady wins there is to fast and accurate wins there is. The transformation has happened somehow, and I would happy to understand what how has Haldiram done the transformation? They have been there for ages. They are like the MDH of the country, right? So your thoughts around that, Sanjeev?
I'll say it's a journey. So it's not that we have done what we wanted to do. I would say we have still taken baby steps at this point in time. But I think we are on the right path with respect to where we want to go. We have a vision with respect to what we want to achieve, and hence I'm trying to break that into smaller milestones so that helps us keep a track on our progress as well. So I would say digitization is a journey which I'm not sure where it will end, because every day we get many new things coming our way, and this is not going to end. The innovation is going to continue.
Innovation, your story starts with innovation, right? So where we stopped, your story began with the transformation at the first stage. You said, we'll bring in the transformation, we'll be the pilot people who will change the way people might do business in the long run. So why was this thought? And the reason why is more important than how. But how, I think, is what people know. Why is something we would be interested to know?
No, I think there's a recent quotes which is floating around us, every company today is a digital company and a software company, right? The mainstream business becomes the second business, right? You have to ensure everything is digital. I think if you're using mobile, if you're using computer, if you're using Excel, you're a digital age company today, right? I think just before starting Param, when I was running an e-commerce company in Bangalore for 3.5 years, handling all the supply chain. I was like, farm to fork company, delivering fruits and vegetables. One side, you want to be crazy, support innovation, 10 minutes delivery, but we were against that philosophy. I said, if you want to be efficient, unit economics, focused organization, we are a bootstrap company, so we said 4 hours delivery, right? But when you want to bring this traceability, we were working with a very, very large supermarket as one of our national level partner. We worked for 9 months with them, and then we figured out that neither he will be profitable or we will be profitable, with the way supply chain, the way it's been conducted over there, right? So we pivoted from there into a dark warehouse and through a lot of technology, and you could see a benefit. So within like 1.5 years, we became an operationally profitable e-commerce company, right? So that's when we said, okay, we should take this to a larger enterprise and create a bigger impact at a global level, not only at India level, take it global level. That's where we pivoted and went into a blockchain-based supply chain collaboration, which is a very, very essential. If I see 2 buildings today, I keep asking this question: how would one send one document from this building to this building, right? Other than courier and your email, which is nothing but another PDF, a paper version of the only thing you can actually send. There's no infrastructure today available for 2 companies to share information today in a most secure manner, right? That's where we got excited about using blockchain, Web3 technologies, decentralization, data security. That's where our journey began.
Absolutely great. Sahil, I'll quickly pick up thoughts on understanding that how this open innovation, the ChatGPT-3, is now taking up phases. I don't know if supply chain and operations will also be impacted by that or not, but definitely a lot of knowledge transfers are happening. And because we talk about innovation, which is largely driven by the idea of thinking new and obviously outside the box, do you think open innovation and also now the open part of any technology transformation, will that be the new face of the country?
No, for sure. So, if you see I can surely say, I mean, half the people wouldn't have even realized we were already at Industry 5.0. We don't even remember how did suddenly, 4 phases are already crossed. So, and like I said, the speed of innovation, that's probably the next big thing. It's, I mean, and it's nothing new. I mean, it's from an era we are talking about when, libraries used to be completely manual, where, the librarian would be asked to where this book is, they'll have a manual record of it. It was digitized, and then the search capability and all came in. As basic as that, what's changed is the way humans think about technology and analyzing data. It's simply technology replicating that in some sense. And then that technology helping itself to grow at a speed at which humans would have grown. That speed can be replicated and can increase the speed much faster. So it's simply a direct overlay of human thinking on technology, the way data can be analyzed, and to put it on more impactful things. It's nothing more than that, and without that, I think nothing else would work out. So, I mean, if I were to talk about, Western way, we've seen that, talking from a core supply chain perspective, I think they are completely and hugely dependent on a lot of 3PLs. That's because of more to do with comparatively less demand and, the infra to support it. In India, we have a different problem to solve in some sense. We have a mass volume sort of problems to solve for with the underlying infrastructure, and even though manpower is there to support it, but unless technology comes in and with open AI sort of changing that technology game, upping the skill game of the people who are supporting it, it's never going to work out. So it's got a pivotal role to play like this.
Fabulous. Pavel, I just come back to you because I also see that there might be a change in the kind of workforce you will be dealing with very soon. The new workforce is very tech savvy. And this is my interaction because I deal with a lot of students and back in colleges, they are also coming in and they have this common concern. This is of the actual concern, but they say this that more often when I talk about innovation, the new generation talks something in Greek and Latin. And we are not aware about it. We are just so blank in terms of accepting what they want to probably bring in. Unless a ChatGPT kind of a thing really rules everything, or a COVID-19 of transformation rules it. So the COVID-19 of transformation will change things and by and large make forceful transformations, I would say. In your understanding, do you see that is the supply chain industry too ready for accepting the new age thought processes, especially at the innovation level?
The cultural aspect of any digital transformation, I think first of all, when you start a new company and you already have a very clear digital footprint and your entire business model is based on the digitalization of your entire processes, in my view, then it's much easier now. I have, in my experience over the last few years, driven a lot of digital transformations, and it is much more difficult in organizations who are trying to adapt to it. And there is a fundamental difference between the cultural aspects which a digitalization journey drives and the inherent cultural aspects of an organization. I'll give you a few examples. As soon as you start digitalizing your processes, decision making has to be decentralized. You cannot be in an environment where you say, I will continue to follow my standard hierarchical decision making process and digitalize everything. It'll fail miserably because you will of course digitalize the processes, but your decision making will probably become even slower. You cannot have an underpinned digital process without inculcating a mindset, a culture of innovation. Challenging everything, challenging the status quo, and then having that hunger of finding new things. Similarly, collaboration. The level of collaboration that you need in a traditional environment and the level of collaboration that you need in a digitally enabled collaboration is very, very different. So the cultural aspects of driving a digital transformation, especially in an organization, in a big organizations which have an inherent culture, that is, I think, sometimes and in most cases not understood and not given the due weightage that it needs to be. The other part, like you said, now the workforce that we have in a traditional supply chain setup right down from the bottom to the top, a lot of it has grown in-house, a lot of it has come up the ranks. So obviously they have grown up with certain processes, certain ways of working, and the appetite to change is obviously less. So that you have to understand and you have to drive it. If you want to make your workplace attractive to new people, and if you don't have processes which are digital, I'm telling you from my experience, you will not be able to attract new people at all. They will simply go to startups, they will simply go to organizations, they will go to e-com companies, and you will miss out on that board completely. So, it's a very, I would say, all intertwined, because on one hand, yes, it is difficult. On the other hand, if you don't do it, you will miss out on a huge opportunity, both in terms of your processes and also in attracting and retaining the right kind of talent. The previous panel was discussing something. My view on that is very simple. There has to be very quickly a standardized supply chain accreditation certification process. I think with the kind of scale of supply chain that we have in this country, and the complexity and the way we are growing in supply chain, it is not just NITI and one IMT, which is going to be enough. Like you have chartered accountants, for example, there will have to be a program eventually where a supply chain professional is accredited based on certain standards which are defined maybe in a collaborative way between institutions and industries. So that is the way this whole piece is going to progress. Without investing into technology, or rather investing only into technology without investing into people is simply not going to work.
Maybe what TAPA has to do it at an institutional level is what is required at the end. They are doing it at an organizational level, but they also need to come at the institutional level, which is probably required to standardize things.
Yeah, and if you think of it like that, there are far more supply chain professionals in this country today, or rather supply chain people today than chartered accountants. Far more. And the growth of the need for supply chain professionals is growing much faster than the need for chartered accountants. The need for standardized, basic competencies and capabilities in supply chain is huge, especially when you go down the line. It's very difficult to find people who have their basic standardized, and I can confidently say, yes, this guy knows what he's doing. You have to go through, again, cycles of interviews, blah, 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 everything. So I think as an industry, and especially with this digital transformation which is happening, we will have to, as an industry, invest into that kind of standardized accreditation certification process.
Ramkesh, adding on to what was, and I think it's an interesting point, you also understand transformation from a different spectrum altogether. Now, spectrum is an important word in your industry largely. So when it comes to understanding India as a focus center, do you see that, is there something which India can make the world learn? We have been learning a lot from the West, applying it in an Indian context, and transformation has always been that, right? We see Germany doing the 4.0 transformation and we are sort of laggards in the process. But do you see some fabulous Indian cases which can really make us right in the center stages as we are right now?
Now we are talking to be Visavu. When we are talking about Visavu, then the rest of the world has to learn, or is seeking towards India to learn many things. Not only about business processes, culture, digitalization, and the quality manpower, and the delivery wells, and so many things. If I talk about the businesses, or say our deliverables, or our speed of work, then during the last few years, one thing is clear in the world is not treating India as any other third world country. It is going to be the fastest developing country in the world, and with the 5th largest economy, it's jumping the leap step by step and very fast also. I don't find there would be any MNC or any top organization in the world who is not having Indian manpower. It's a brain. And of course, if there are the recent examples, the COVID management and the digitalization, developing infra, and there are select few top 2-3 countries who are there, who are top ranking LPI countries, who are having hydrogen based or electric line based roads, and that are only in concept and in implementation phase in India. And managing the vast, different weather and all weather country or the geography, and developing multi-modal supply chain, air, land, water, everything. There are so many things which world is taking example from India and copying it. For supply perspective, I was thinking during last panel discussion, when I was sitting here, that there is still gap between the top world RSP players and Indian typical, say, 3P or 4P companies. There is a big gap between the two. There is scope that Indian LSP can jump or say can compete to the top LSP of the world by stepping up or scaling or say widespreading their operation from one country to Asia Pacific, and then slowly closely covering the entire world. This is, I think, is a big scope which Indian partners can collect it, and I'm sure the people and the many RSP who are scaling might be thinking about it, and they will do so.
Ericsson, coming to you, because you have been understanding and more importantly transforming the blockchain space predominantly. Do you see, because the next question will immediately jump to Sanjeev, because he represents a company which has changed the way we celebrate. So it's like the favorite boat of all time, right? Australia is all about Haldiram. How do you transform a company, or especially companies which have been for years into processes and which are sort of ready for the change? So I understand readiness in terms of the top management as well as infrastructure wise they are ready. How do you and where do you bring in your set of network to set the transformation at the right place? Comments on that?
I think today, so we've done a lot of experiments over the last 4 years to drive this change management within the enterprise. One is, of course, we are in a superb and advantageous era where COVID has come. Everybody is talking about digital supply chain. And in fact, this 4 years back, when we started, it was a very tough topic, right? Nobody was even opening the door for us. Now there's a good mindset. That's actually the first stepping step for us. I think, so we tried going through different channels. We went via an IT mindset. We thought there will be early adopters. They will understand. But a very interesting find for us is IT feels already they've automated everything. Hey, we automatically send an invoice by email to our suppliers. It's automated already, right? So we felt something is fundamentally wrong. Then we thought, okay, probably to solve people who are really going through the pain, right? We went to the finance team and said, how is your invoice reconciling with your operations and all of this? There are a lot of problems, but they didn't have domain knowledge. What's really happening in the organization? But when we start talking about the supply chain team, I think that's where we realized they are the one who actually sitting with a lot of pain points, right? They can immediately throw, right? For example, one of the large fashion brand leader workshop last Wednesday, they called us and said they want to do some automation of 3 areas. Right? And we said we want to run a 4 hours workshop. And just by 30% of the process, we found out at least about 12 to 14 touch points where it can be digitized. And when I said, if this digitized, how much is your turnaround time can save? They said at least it can save 4 weeks. So in supply chain, it's about concept to shelf is about 40 weeks to 45 weeks. And if you're able to save in just one conversation 4 weeks, right? It's a huge 10% improvement over there, and you don't even see everybody agreed just because we just did this, right? So it's more of bringing all parties into a room, making them realize, and of course thanks to technology like low-code tools and other things, we kind of demonstrate to them, hey, what we speak can be translated in 5 minutes, right? And then of course it's not a workable deployable. It will take about probably 8 weeks to deployable solution. At least we can make them. The look and feel can be actually immediately shown to them, right? It's a like POC pilot field, but I think more of bringing everybody into a room and making them realize is a big journey. But what we understood is work directly with supply chain team that they actually understand the pain point, and that's always a entry point. Probably all of them would have got email from me before saying, hey, I'm Vaidee, I'm going to solve your problem, right?
Okay, Sanjeev, do you, so keeping his email in mind.
So I think I definitely agree with him, and I think supply chain, if you look at as a function, understands the way business operates, right? So while, say for example, a finance, they would know only about P&L. Supply chain kind of encompasses into almost every facet of the entire business, and they understand the supply chain, and hence I agree with them that they are able to bring the pain points on the table, which can find a tech solve for us. I'm just giving a few examples. I mean, technology or AI can help in terms of doing predictive analytics for us. It can predict what my demand could be, or what my supply could be. Or, I mean, through connected devices, it can say when this machine is going to fail for me. How can I do preventive maintenance ahead of time so that the machine doesn't fail? How I can increase my efficiencies? So, supply chain, I think, is at the center point in terms of the entire scheme of things, which can help improve the business. I would say entire business, not only supply chain, the entire business they can have impact.
Sahil, your thoughts on understanding how are the newbies, the new upcoming companies as startups, what we call, how is that space changing versus the contemporary businesses being transformed? The newbies are obviously, they are also sometimes called the born global company. They are right away born global, right? Versus the companies who are traditionally not global but eventually are now getting digitally global because of the transformation.
See, the good thing about startup space is it's not just that the startup founders have come up with innovative ideas that are easily understandable by companies and are adopted, but everything is coming out because of a need. And we have got very senior experienced people across the industries who are very fundamentally important to some of these needs. I'll give an example. One of the largest CPG companies I happened to meet with their global supply chain head. He mentioned around 2 decades back, he had this idea that there should be one single underlying platform to solve for anything needed to related to supply chain. And at that time, he did try and approach one of the largest companies that was trying to solve it. I mean, the answer was from a perspective that we've spent billions of dollars on R&D on a particular solution, and we want to focus on selling that right now, but we'll be happy to expand into other areas as well. Now, if you see, there's a reason why West is so fundamentally on like point solution sort of approach, because the innovation has happened with time with very myopic view on some of those problems to solve for, and that's exactly what the startups today are trying to bring the change. India is at a stage where all of the Indian brands are expanding globally from here. What years back was done by Western companies, I think a lot of Indian brands are going global right from the day one, and they realize that how important it is to have that core infrastructure ready. I mean, imagine one company having, let's say, 100 SKUs, and there are now at least 5 go-to-market channels. Now imagine a conglomerate having 6 business verticals with each having 100 SKUs to sort of do the same thing. That's where the problem arises from, and that's where startups are now trying to solve from a digital transformation perspective, that we'll do end-to-end everything that you need, and so that the AI and ML part of it, which is the next future, you have at least the base ready to have that analysis done on all of the data. There is a single eye view, like Pavel said, people, we need to provide those decision making and digital data at every stage and every level of the organization, and make decision making independent. And then, of course, there will be a central team sitting on the top who will have to have that bird's eye view on all of it. And unless it happens at a central manner and covers the entire aspect of your infrastructure, it's never going to give in good results. Because each of that disconnected part can have leakages in its own. And in today's competition, I don't think so anyone can afford leakages anymore.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, because you're talking about innovation, and he's almost put his side thoughts on the forum, I would be interested to understand, and this is for sort of a discussion which we will probably end up with. Do you see innovation happening at a technology level, or at maybe at a mindset level, at an infrastructure level? Because innovation is happening. We are innovating. India is innovating for sure. To some extent, tech for sure. But tech is a never-ending, like a never-ending universe. Right? It will keep evolving. So, how do it? as an audience, if they want to take away something as a pointers to innovation, what would be that? Would that be tech? Would that be? And I will be happy to look at your experiences. I mean, because experience is something which is completely unique to you, right? Unlike technologies. so thoughts on that?
So innovation, I think it's such a vast topic. It's difficult to sort of encapsulate to break it
And
down.
that's why I said your.
So my experience is that you have to be, I think, very open, very mentally active. I'll give you a simple example. I think that probably will answer a bit better than giving a general theoretical answer. So a few weeks back, somebody came to me and said, okay, in your industry, I come from the alcohol industry, there is a big problem of counterfeit and I have a solution. I said, okay, good. It is a problem. I've been talking to a few people on how to solve it, but let's listen it out. So he said the solution is NFTs. So I was initially a bit shocked, is that how is NFT going to solve my counterfeit problem? So that I called, it's a small startup, of 5-6 people who have been working on sort of NFT technology, and told me that we don't even use blockchain, we have a ledger technology now. A ledger technology which is driving NFT. And then they came back to me with the entire concept of how the NFT is going to get transferred, the ownership of the NFT is going to get transferred from the manufacturer to the distributor, to the retailer, and eventually to the consumer. So when you buy a bottle of Chivas Regal 25-year-old, unless you get an NFT token, you are not buying the right stuff. And if you paid 25,000 rupees, you would want to do that. So that's, in my view, the kind of ecosystem that we are living in, that the traditional mindset or the mindset that we used to have many years ago, that there is an innovation team which is going to innovate and then drive the whole organization to follow that innovation sort of pipeline, those days are now gone. There are innovation opportunities everywhere, especially in supply chain. Like I just mentioned, this very simple example. Another example is somebody came to me the other day and said, we are going to do NLP to increase, optimize your customer service function. So if I'm going to sit in my function and even think that I will be able to identify innovation opportunities across the value chain, I think we are living in a very different world. You have to keep looking for those opportunities. The innovation ecosystem is now much bigger. Yeah, and that's the only way any organization or any industry is going to keep pace with what is happening outside.
Fabulous. Ramkesh, your set of stories, because I think stories are very interesting. It's always an experience for everyone to reflect upon. Your reflection, stories, experience or innovation.
See, I think these are the continuous process on the part of business doing. And every step of process, the innovation is keep happening with the implementation of new technology, how the new technology is being used in different functions of the business and different stages and different situations. Just keep on innovating from person to person and team to team. In telecom, if I say we are covering entire India, which is having different geography, different weathers. In India, every 3 months you will find different weather conditions, and after every 200 kilometers, there are different borders and different checkposts. And in supply chain, innovation is which route is the faster, and today again change which road is closed, which is open. There is also one innovation. The drivers keep on innovating the fastest route, delivering the goods faster, and the engineers, while implementing the network installation, they find better and better innovative ideas to install the equipments, to maintain the upkeep, the machines, keep on going. I think it's part of life. It's never stop and keep going.
I remember this small thing which I often do tell this to my classroom. One of the things which we have learned over the years, both positive and negative, is from a game called Pokemon Go. I'm sure most of you have heard of the game name for sure. If not played it, So Pokemon Go eventually made us understand that we may go outside our comfort zone just to catch Pokemon, which are as good as our NFTs are, right? they're in spaces. So they made us move. In one of the consulting assignments we were doing for a company, I remember, and I'll come back to the remaining panel in a minute. So their problem was that most of our so-called recruitment happens, that's fairly okay. But the moment we start off with a 2-day, 1-day sort of an recruitment exercise and they finish and they come back for the induction program, it's a pretty boring exercise. Generally happens, right? So fair enough. So they eventually moved to the idea of contemporary 2-day, 1-day induction to a Pokemon Go version of induction. People were running left, right, center on the campus, they were trying to find out there is what. Instead of me telling Sanjeev that, okay, Sanjeev telling the entire team that there are 5 machine trees and then he's the boss and then you have to report to him. I said, boss, this is Pokemon Go. Catch these 20 Pokemons and you are done with your training. Because I will give you much more information while you are on the go rather than me sitting and talking for maybe 20 minutes. Given an opportunity next time, if I am doing a panel discussion like this, I would probably do more Pokemon Go's inside the classrooms. Great, but Sanjeev, back to you. How has your story changed? How has innovation changed your story?
So if you look at innovation per se, I mean, you have to remain curious all the time. You have to kind of keep challenging the status quo. And that's how you kind of try to find new ways of working to the same problem. Else you continue to do the same way, the way the machine would do it. So, and that's the beauty of what humans bring to the table in terms of trying to do the same thing in a different manner, which kind of tries to bring in efficiencies or reduce the efforts. And maybe I remember the quote, the laziest people, they are the best innovators because they find ways to kind of cut down their times. So I think that's the way which, and that's never ending thing. The way we say learning is never ending, even innovation is never ending.
Vaideeswaran, coming back to you, and because technology as a space, as I said, it's as good as a black hole. We don't know till what time we are inside. I mean, we are still moving towards that infinite space. When it comes to doing grassroots innovation, do you really feel that we are focusing too much on that? The reason why I'm asking this question because I do a lot of teaching back at my college level and also meet professionals. They are being sent to these schools often. Okay, they come to these schools for doing these courses, and they said that our company is now asking us to understand analytics maybe in the next 6 months. Like how? They said, I don't know what is an ML function, I don't know what is an AI function. You let me know which buttons to click, and I'm there. So it's a common problem, and the reason why I'm asking this is because it is so much. The transformation has happened although, and the company is forcing people to learn AI, ML because they are decision makers. They can't replace them by machines for whatever said and done. So they are understanding the transformation but not the cusp or the essence part of it. Is there a way to make them deconstruct the most complicated technologies as if probably we are trying to understand the ABCs of technology? So comments on that?
I think the startup mindset is, it's more like reverse engineering every stage, right? So today what you narrated is a classic problem statement for the startups to go and solve, right? I think that's how we look at it. I think one of the things which I one phrase which I've caught today is, a tolerance for ambiguity, which as part of the keynote, what you heard from the keynote speaker, right? So that's what we kind of look for. We kind of first we go and say, yes, NFT can solve algebra problem. Yes. Then come back and figure out, yes. Then we start believing that it is possible. Then we start solving those problems, kind of a thing, right? And I think I have to say, we have to see also, when we started. So I remember we signed up an early access program with Google for TensorFlow probably 8 to 10 years back before TensorFlow was started. That time, to do anything on data science, you need to have statistics, maths, and all of that. Today, I just did an interview 10 days back when they said I'm a data science guy from Singapore. I was very much impressed and I saw all these is upgrade here, right? He doesn't. He just said, okay, I went to Google search and saw how to do forecasting. It said you have to use a time series, some RNN model. Where is that model? I downloaded that model and I applied on the data. I was able to predict, and prediction is accurate, right? So now, like it's changed in the last 1 month, it's changed, completely, right? In terms of, if you want to predict, you just start to ask question in your own natural language, right? You're going to get back answer saying this is going to predict, or just throw an Excel sheet and get the answer to it, right? So one of the biggest skill, I've been running startup for 15 years. One of the first skill we teach in induction is, we actually hire from second tier and third tier cities, right? They don't even speak sometimes English properly, right? So one of the biggest disadvantages for them is actually Google search, right? Compared to a guy who hired from Bangalore, can do a better Google search and do a better coding. He knows what code to use rather than this guy. The only advantage is that. So we actually, part of the induction, like Excel, somebody said, we actually teach Google search actually, right? Saying that you have to use this. So where I'm saying is, today, the more you feel that things are getting tougher and tougher, and things are going at an abstraction level. And again, I come from microelectronics, where I see how to convert silicon into gates to a chip, versus all the way today we talk about software programming. So much abstractions come, you never think about the sand from where your silicon is actually coming from today, right? So I think the more and more abstraction layers are coming, so it's going to be more and more easier, right? You don't have to worry, how am I going to learn? So if that is a problem statement, we are ready to solve. Only problem I see is in the Indian context, this is not well recognized for startups. Companies who are working at fundamentally creating protocols or platforms are not really supported as much as in the West. West you can just say that's where ICOs and cryptos world went very rich. By putting on white paper, you can get funded, right? Yes. Because they think anything is possible, but still we are a very unit economics driven country, right? Some level of craziness we need to allow. Then the more innovation will happen.
I think that's true. That's one of the prime reasons, Sahil, last set of comments. But I also want to understand that while we are all set for, we are intrinsically ready sort of with for the innovation to happen, are there companies extrinsically motivating people to innovate? See, the reason why I'm asking is because the moment you allow that power for people to innovate, maybe I am an employee of an organization, you might see, maybe he's a fabulous chap, he has brought in a transformation for me, why can't he go to my company and do the same thing? So how do firms, especially like yours, make people both intrinsically and extrinsically motivated to innovate at whatever level they are? And that could be a truck driver to maybe a CEO of a company.
Correct. So I think India has been that land of innovation much before even the word patents existed, I would say. And we have been doing it very frugally to answer that unit economics point. I think I remember a joke during the before mobile phone era. I remember it stuck with me during my childhood that there was quite a few people from the West trying to start a scooter that was not starting, and they were putting in angles, trying science and all of that. And an Indian guy turns at 45 degrees, just kick starts the scooter and it sort of moves ahead. So I'll tell you what some of the, we've heard a lot about companies like 3M who have dedicated hours in the week to sort of just innovate on anything, be it a process, be it a product, and they've come up with some fantastic products because of that. I know a couple of Indian traditional organizations leave about startups that ensure that there is a rotation of roles of everyone, just to have a different perspective to solve things. There was this organization, large manufacturing company, who had a very senior salesperson get into their horticulture department of all the properties for 1 month. And the kind of innovation it brought in to reduce the overall expenses on property management, being bringing a salesy perspective to things was, it was very exciting to see that. Similarly, I think in today's startup, especially, I'll give example of Pando, for example. I think we started, very few people know we started as probably a black book in our early days, in our first name that was there. And when we went on ground, I think our founders met with all the transporters. And transporters were coming up with a lot of tech problems to solve. But they were saying, can you sort of automatically raise invoices, basis whatever we've done for the customers that we move the goods for. They came up with problems like, boss, our trucks are moving, let's say at 75%. Can we are combining a lot of PTL loads. Can you sort of help us in a way that we can combine it better and form a FTL at our level and sort of get in those margins? And that is where our founders realized was, even though there was one problem we were trying to solve at the transporter's end, I think we can probably solve it at the other side of the source, and that's where the technology came in, where Pando is today, to sort of solve all of this for the entire ecosystem, but at a grassroots level for the people who are actually providing all of that. And today also every process that Pando does, I think we dedicate some time at an individual level, and we are asked to, that is there a way, there is a technology that can solve or do something that you are doing manually today, which can make it faster. And Pando has adopted, I think we have around 12 to 14 internal technology tools for a startup of scale of 250. I think that's unheard of. But the kind of technology we are using to solve some of those problems, our team sizes are very frugal, and because of technology sort of helping us support it. So I think fundamentally everyone is running in that direction, even though manpower is plenty available, but they are looking to hire more skilled manpower and who can do things much faster and much more frugally for themselves as well as for the customers around them.
Fabulous, great. So on that note, I would just want to add one last set of thoughts which sort of will wrap up the discussion. And I remember I was watching the movie and also reading the book about Alan Turing. Alan Turing is the name for the movie. For people who are watching movies, it's a movie called The Imitation Game. Right? Alan Turing is the reason why we have AIs in the world. Right? He was the one who cracked the Nazis code, right? This is called, which is the reason why we are all thinking about AI these days and the innovation all about. If you read his history and you read how what we are doing at the moment is, he was not somebody who was coming from a computer science background. He was a mathematician actually. His primary knowledge was mathematics, and he was recruited to crack the Enigma code. Right now, it's as good a situation of cracking the Enigma code, because every company is trying to find how do we do this. There is no one recipe, there is no master recipe which defines everything. Like, it's as good as, if I want to put the last word there, it's as good as putting the right recipe for making the tea. There is no right recipe for making a tea. We are a tea making country, we are a tea drinking country, right? And we have been always there, right? Come what may, I think that is how the transformation is, right? Irrespective of what pandemic was or not the case, we will still be a tea drinking country and tea celebrating country. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone for being a very nice discussion audience. For the audience to be back in the room, I also want to congratulate them for sparing an extra hour on this discussion. Thank you everyone for being a nice one.